All right, it has been a couple or 3 weeks, I don't know, since I've done a science video. And For that, I apologize. I've had the idea that I want to go with. I just have been trying to decide how to edit and put some stuff in, which I think figured out how to do. You'll find out when you're watching this if I have or not. Anyway, it's really honestly just been distraction and laziness, complacency on my part. I apologize. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about it, whether I get the editing done or not. We'll find out. So, what I want to talk about, and I'm going to be on this particular subject for a few weeks because there's things to cover, and I want to still try to keep the videos kind of short. But the next thing I'm going to go on to is the geologic timeline. And I feel like there's another title I should be giving it, but I can't think of it right now. But you'll know what I'm talking about. It's basically you see the cross section where you see the rock layers all stacked on top of each other. You'll see it in cartoon-like illustrations all the time where it's real clear because they have them all in different colors stacked on top of each other. But then when you see examples of it in nature, photographic, stuff like that, you see them there pretty clear too, where you've got a rock layer stacked on top of a rock layer, stacked on top of a rock layer, and it's very clear, very very sharp lines and different types of rock on top of different types of rock and stuff like that. And then you see fossils inside those rocks. That's not as clear in photographs as it is in the drawings and stuff, obviously. But anyway, where I want to start with that is basically right back at the beginning. When the first guys, sorry, I'm attacking the camera there, is when they first started putting it together and talking about it, was basically how they started to decide how old the rocks were and how to date everything, how to age everything. Because when they first started assigning ages and time frames to everything, it was back before they had things like radiometric dating and all that, which is something else I'm going to talk about later. But it was before they had technologies like radiometric dating and things like that in order to try to pinpoint the age of anything. So they really just, from any kind of research, they really just kind of picked a time frame. They're like, it's this old. And they assigned that to the deeper layers have got to be this old. Well, then the layers above that have got to be less old than that. So we'll just call it this old. And then the layers above that have got to be, well, this old. And so they just assign these millions of years. And then as time went on and our technology got better, then some of the dates got pushed. And we were wrong about that. It's got to be older. It never got younger than that. It always got older than that. But as the technologies got better, then the technologies always seems to either confirm or make older the dates on the things and all that. Because, and like I said, I'll talk about that later. But but then when they went on to determine the age of the rocks and then determine the age of the fossils and stuff, and you would question that, you'd be like, oh, how do you know how old this fossil is? Well, we know because of the layer of rock that it was found in. And then later they come around and they're like, well, how do you know how old these rocks are? Well, we know because of the fossils found in that layer or in those rocks. So you date the rocks by the fossils found in them, but you date the fossils by the layer of rock it was found in. So the circular reasoning, so this makes that old, but that makes this old. So really there's no way to tell how old either are because you're using one thing to verify another and nothing verifies the two. And so you see the problem in there from the very beginning, they are kind of self-verifying and not really using any kind of solid data to begin with. And from there, we see where science begins to sort of not really ground itself in any solid data to begin with. And then we start moving forward with assumptions. Remember that from some of the other videos. We start moving forward with assumptions, and we start building our concrete evidence on assumptions, and more assumptions and more assumptions, and you'll see that through other videos. Whereas, if you remember, a lot of us in school also came across that same kind of layer stacking thing when we took various types of dirt and soil and such and put them in a jar of water and shook it up and then put it down, and then what we found was that water and soil and such would kind of would separate itself into layers very quickly, because the water would have it settle at different rates based on the density of the layers. And another way that might happen on a global scale might be, like in a flood situation, perhaps. Not necessarily over billions of years, but maybe in around about a couple of weeks or months or maybe even a year type situation. Just tossing that out there. But who am I, right? To be somebody who can see that kind of empirical experiment, repeatable experiment type of a thing, rather than billions of years of assumption type data. But anyway, so we'll talk about some of the other assumptions next week. Just wanted to toss that out and get you thinking about that. So we'll move on to another one next week. We'll talk to you later.